So you want to get into FPV, but you have no idea what it is. TLDR, this is what you're going to need. And yeah, that's basically all you really need to start getting into the hobby. So if you just wanted, some really quick tips and the specific things that you're gonna need without any explanations, that's for you. But for everybody else that wants to get a bit more in detail about everything that I have and the reason why I got everything, we're actually gonna go back to the bench and we are going to focus on the small nitty-gritty things that we need. What I'll also be doing is that if this is going on YouTube, I will have timestamps for everything down on the timeline, and all the links that I recommended are going to be in the video description as well. And also along with all the other FPV pilots and tutorials that have helped me along the way, I want to give it back to you guys. So this video will kind of be like a really good bookmark. If you guys have any questions about something, whether it comes to receivers, radios, drones, compatibility, and just other basic tips and tricks that might help you guys out along the way. Okay, now gonna be going into more detail sitting on my bench right over here. There's a few things I want to address before we get more into all the tech stuff, and that's gonna be some video tutorials. So on the screen over here, I'm putting a bunch of guys that I have been following for the last, I'd say like 2 or 3 months, and they've really helped me with trying to understand what is kind of going on. So I've also kind of described what each video does for me, or a couple of things that they taught me that really helped my progression in this hobby. So now with those videos out of the way, let's get into the stuff that I have. Now everything that I have is compatible, everything works really nicely, and yeah, so it's all gonna work. If you do decide to buy these things, I will have links to make sure that you guys can get it. If you're watching on Instagram, I might not have the links, but if it's on YouTube, you guys will be able to see it there. So the first thing is going to be your transmitter, is going to be your radio. This is the thing that's going to be talking to your drone to make sure it can fly a certain way. Now, if you're coming from DJI, you're going to know this as your controller as well. Although you notice that you have to put your phone in, and then there's no screen here, and you're wondering, whoa, where's the screen? So the screen is actually with the goggles. But your radio is probably the first purchase that you're going to want to make. And the one that I opted to get was the FrSky Taranis X9 Lite. The reason why I got this controller is because at the time it was very cheap. It is still a pretty cheap radio. It is made of plastic, but it does the job super well for me, and I don't really see myself upgrading in the near future. So this is pretty much it. And there's the back side. This is where my battery compartment is. This holds 2 18650 batteries. Also, if you want to get an external cell battery on the side, you can plug it in. You can do a bunch of things with that, but I prefer the 18650 batteries. Up over here, this is for a module. What is a module? Basically, this is the thing that's going to upgrade your connectivity to your drone and to your goggles. I can show what I have in this guy in the very end, but this is what I would start off with. I think it's around $80 or $90. It's really nice. It's super affordable. And the next thing from that would be a simulator. Now, simulators allow you to kind of fly all over these places in different areas of practicing in a video game without actually, paying the price for crashing your drone. So it's a really good place to practice. There's a couple that I recommend, but these two over here are the ones that I recommend the most. Everything's around $20, and everything I think is on Steam as well. So if you have a Steam account, super easy. If you don't, again, super easy. You can sign up for free and download it from there. So now once you have those two together, you're going to want to practice a couple different things. There's a couple of different techniques. Also in the video description, if you're watching on YouTube, I will have it down there. But if you're watching this on Instagram, which most of you are going to be, Joshua Bardwell also has a really good tutorial. Even Rotor Riot has a really good tutorial on how all these kind of function. But to go over it really quickly, So the throttle, which is going up and down this side, this makes it go up and it makes it go down. The yaw, which is going this way, it makes the drone tilt or pan side to side. The roll axis, which is right here, is what's going to make the drone do this, do like a barrel roll. And then the pitch going forward and backward, it's what's going to tilt the drone forward or it's going to tilt the drone backwards. So the first thing is to practice in the simulator. I say at least get 10 hours at the absolute minimum. I'd say around maybe like 15 to 20 hours after being in the simulator, you're probably ready to go and buy your drone. Now, if you don't want to spend a lot of money, like, because I know the total from this is really expensive and it might scare some people, this is a really cheap way to get into the hobby. And if you're not feeling it, you can always sell these guys. And a lot of people are always going to be looking for them anyways. The next thing that you're probably going to want to get before getting a drone is a pair of FPV goggles. Now, this is what makes the drone hobby really, really fun. Now, this is the thing that's going to let you see what the drone sees. And if we actually bring one on the side, you can actually see there is a camera right here on the very front. This is where the GoPro would be, and this is what your goggles are going to be seeing. A lot of them are really expensive, so the one that I recommend if you're just starting out is these Eachine ones. I think it's like Eachine D600Ds or something like that. I'm not super sure. But these are box goggles. Box goggles, they're a bit bigger. They are still really comfortable. I do bring these on set just in case there's an extra person that wants to see it. These guys are in a 16:9 aspect ratio. So if you're used to like cinematography and movies, you're used to that ratio. So these goggles are pretty cheap, really nice and immersive, and they also have diversity. Now, diversity means you can have 2 different types of antennas. When you do get these guys, you are being given 2 different types of antennas, and the first one is going to be a omnidirectional, and this is going to be a patch antenna. Now, these 2 antennas do 2 very separate things, but also help your goggles retrieve video from your drone itself. Now, the omnidirectional one is a antenna that kind of makes a whole 360 area of effectiveness around the goggle itself. So if you screw it onto this side, now the radio signal that's coming from your VTX, which is also your video transmitter from the drone, is sending a signal to this, and then it's sending the image to your goggle so you can see what it is. And then a patch antenna is focusing all of its energy going into one direction. So if you're going like a long distance thing, these guys are super helpful with penetrating through really dense obstacles such as like buildings, concrete, rocks, trees, whatever it may be. And this guy's always pointing towards the general direction of where your drone's going to be. So you just pop it in right here on this side. And that's how your goggles are going to end up looking. So you have an omni and a patch looking in the general direction of where you are flying, and that'll give you the best experience and the best video that you possibly can have. So after getting your goggles, obviously the next thing is going to be getting a drone. Now there's a couple different drones that I would recommend. So the first one you have is a 5-inch quadcopter. These guys have 5-inch propellers on them, hence why we say 5-inch. And these guys are mainly for freestyle and for long distance. So if you guys are trying to get into that, I'd recommend that. But the one that I recommend, think everyone's starting off with, is a Cinewhoop. Now Cinewhoop, if you are coming from the DJI aspect, you probably have a really easy time trying to figure this guy out. Basically, it's the nice form factor. You also have these ducts around these sides which would protect the propellers from spinning, because these guys spin pretty fast and they also can cut you really bad. So if you're first starting off, I wouldn't say go for a 5-inch right off the bat. I say go more towards a Cinewhoop. And these guys, I think you've seen like a lot of videos on YouTube as well. These guys are meant for gliding, for going through really tight obstacles, and also in houses. But Cinewhoops are really great. This is the one that I first started with. This is the Cloud 149 Cinewhoop. And there's also different types of drones that you might not know about when you're first purchasing. So the first one is you need to figure out if it's a plug and play, a PNP, if it's a bind and fly, BNF, or a plug and play. Now the difference with the 3 of those is that a bind and fly is the drone will come by itself. There's no batteries or anything included. They should come with propellers and a couple of different things, a couple of straps, but there will be no receiver on the inside. Now a receiver is a thing that's coming from your drone, sending all the information to your controller so that they can talk to each other. Now, if you don't have this receiver, your drone's not going to take off and you guys aren't going to be able to connect. So be mindful when you guys are finding plug and play P&P drones that you're gonna need to buy an extra receiver, and that could be another like $20 or $30. If you want to just buy it ready to bind to a radio, binding is basically like connecting the two, you're gonna want to get a bind and fly quad. Now this one that I purchased, the Cloud 149 Cinewhoop, wasn't a bind and fly. This was a plug and play. However, the Nazgul 5 4S version of this drone was a bind and fly. So I already had a receiver. I believe it had a XM Plus receiver installed. It's basically like a certain brand of receivers. So that was already plugged in. All I had to do was bind these two. And if you want to know how to bind, I have a couple of video recommendations I want to have you guys check out. Go look at it there. All these guys are going to be talking to each other along with the goggles. So this is going to be like your main setup, the main first three things that you're going to want to buy when you're starting to get into the hobby. Now, the next thing you guys are going to need are batteries. So these batteries are a bit different from what you're used to, especially if you're coming from the DJI standpoint. They have about 4 of these cells right here on this side. 4 cell battery or 4C battery is what a lot of drones end up using. So like my Cinewhoop and my Nazgul both use 4S batteries. And there's all this information on this guy as well. If you want to know a bit more about these batteries, I do have a video from my friend Matt. You can check him out. He does a fantastic job of knowing and explaining how to read these guys and figure out which one is the best for you. And if you're going to go down the cinematics standpoint, you're going to need a GoPro or any kind of action camera. As you can see, I've already cracked mine on the back. But yeah, you're going to need a GoPro. You also might need an ND filter if you guys are into, you know, making sure your shots look super cinematic and having your shutter speed at a certain way. So yeah, so I use a GoPro Hero 7 for a lot of my stuff just because that's what my ND filters are sticking with, and it's done me good so far. Now, the way that some of the GoPros are stabilizing using gyro and whatnot act a bit differently. I know the 6 and the 8 are a bit better with that kind of thing. The 5 and the 7 are not as simple for stabilization if you're using an outside source like Real Steady Go. But the in-body stabilization or the hyper smooth on a lot of those cameras are naturally really nice already. But you're also going to need a GoPro mount if you want to slap these guys on top. These guys are anti-vibration mounts. So if these guys are in the air, all the vibrations going out and helping steady the camera just a bit more. So I have these guys from Brain 3D. This guy's really awesome. 3D printed TPU mounts right over here. TPU is basically the kind of plastic that we end up using. And as you can see, I have a strap right here on this side just to kind of keep it down. A lot of people have them drilled into the actual frame of the drone itself. So yeah, you can kind of either strap it down or you can drill them in. It's really your preference. And just a couple of different things that I have a lot on my drones. I do have a actual Crossfire, a Team Black Sheep, TBS Crossfire receivers and antennas. There's an Immortal T right here. This guy just basically gives me a lot more range and a lot more area to kind of cover when I'm flying. I also have a GPS signal right here on this side. It's kind of taped up right now to make sure it stays in place. But because these drones aren't like DJI where you can have like a return to home kind of feature. It kind of it falls if it loses telemetry or if it loses signal. So with this GPS guy right here, if I lose video connection or if I lose radio connection, this thing will kick in and it'll raise it to a certain elevation and kind of start flying me back home. It's not gonna land right in front of me nice and solid, but it will come within like a certain range where I can retake control and land the drone properly. And then for everyone wondering what goggles that I use, I have these SkyZones 030s. These are OLED goggles, really nice, kind of expensive, but definitely worth it. Now the Eachine goggles don't need an external battery. They already have an internal one, so you can just plug in the cord and start charging it. I do like these guys because this is a 2-cell battery, and they just plug it in. It lasts for basically forever. But these guys are a really nice form factor. It's nice, smaller, and it's not as bulky. And then with my goggles, I also have this module right here for the goggles, basically another mod to make sure that this goggle works at its peak performance. So the module that I'm using is a TBS Fusion. There's a couple different ones out there. I think it's the Rapid Fire, and there's a couple of different ones, but I like this one because I like Team Black Sheep a lot. I have a lot of their products, as you can also see from the mat itself. So what this guy does is that it gives you more range and more usability out of your goggles, so you can have better connection when you're going further and to deeper places. So this guy helps penetrate through a lot more rocks, trees, a lot of terrain, and allows you to go farther and you can see what's going on. So this guy, I have it strapped right here on this side, and I kind of plug everything in along with the battery. So this battery is supplying power to the module and also the goggles itself. So this guy is actually really, really good. If you're looking forward to kind of getting these guys, I'd say this is probably one of the last upgrades you want to get. I just needed it because my other goggles was way too fat, and I just want a nice form factor, and I wanted to add a module in and also get an external battery, because the Eachine goggles maybe last about 45 minutes if you're flying like pretty well, but after that it takes about a couple hours to charge, whereas this guy takes around like 45 minutes if that, and this lasts just forever. And then the next thing that I talked about before was Crossfire. So Crossfire is basically a module that goes onto any kind of radio or whatever radio that permits, and it gives you better range and better usability. So this is the Crossfire Nano TX. The TX stands for transmitter. So this guy is going to help you get more range in this radio, so you have more control when you're going really far or if you need to penetrate really, really thick obstacles. And this one is made specifically for this radio. As you can see on the back, there's a little opening for the module, like I said before. So this guy, all you got to do, take it, locks into place, and you have something that looks really damn good. Now, a lot of radios do have space for a module and probably for Crossfire. So if you're looking to get it and you want better range and you want the peace of mind that you're not going to be able to fail safe, or that you're going to be able to get through a lot of these really thick obstacles, I definitely go with Crossfire. Make sure that Crossfire does work for your radio, and if not, that might be a deciding factor about what kind of radio that you get. But for me, thankfully enough, they did make one for this guy. So if you're looking to get into the hobby really cheap and you want to know that you can get Crossfire, yeah, I would definitely recommend the Taranis X9 Lite. But this is the charger that I have. It's really good. Again, I'll put some links to a couple of the different guys that do reviews about this, and they go a little bit more in depth into it. But basically, this is your one-stop power bank for all of your charging, whatever you need. It's 2 different channels for 2 of your 2 different kinds of batteries, or if you have a parallel charger, you can use that as well. So seeing from these batteries, you have your XT60 connector, you plug this in there, and then your balance leads also plug into there. And this is like a regulated charger, so it's not going to be, you know, if you leave it in overnight, it's gonna catch on fire because it's gonna power the batteries too much. No, this guy is absolutely safe. I love this guy. It is a bit expensive, but it is so worth to have that peace of mind that when you're charging, you're gonna charge this guy up, but also make sure all the cells are balanced as well. Because if your cells aren't balanced, it could cause a bit of a mess. So always invest in a really good charger. And kind of coming down to it, you're going to need a set of tools. If you have tools at home already, there's very specific ones that the FPV hobby uses, so I definitely recommend getting a nice toolkit. These guys I get from Pyrodrone. I know Pyrodrone, Ethics, Get FPV, and a couple of other different brands also have their own. Race Day Quads, they probably have their own as well. But I just went with Pyrodrone because it's the first company that I was buying from. So this is what's going to have inside. I was just flying out today, so you have a couple of different pieces right here on this side. But there's a bunch of really good stuff. All these tools here on this side are compatible with every single drone. These Hex Divers are all used in different parts of the drone specifically, so you don't have to worry about them. Very durable as well. We got some scissors, some clippers, tweezers, and pliers. So basically everything that you need to kind of fix up on the spot if you really need to, or even fixing at home, is really, really nice. If you guys are looking to get like a whole kit, I definitely recommend researching a little bit to see which ones that you like the best. But again, Pyrodrone ones works for me. All right, and a couple more things that you guys are going to need before we wrap this video up is just some extra stuff and extra hardware and extra things for your batteries. There's going to be times when you're going to fall, you're going to crash, and you're going to end up losing things, and that's just kind of how the hobby is. Actually, I don't know if you guys caught it on screen, but from one of my other drones, a little piece actually came off. So it's always good to have extra bolts, extra things on the side whenever you do crash and you do end up breaking something. So we're going to go over this one first. This is a hardware kit. Open this guy up. Some really nice nuts and bolts for everything that's going to be going with your drone. We got some stands for your little stack in the middle, holding your ESC, your flight controller, and your VTX. So having these guys is really nice. A lot of these things are kind of cheap on their own, but obviously when you start adding it up together, it does cost quite a bit, and that's what might scare some people. Even buying stuff like this can really save your butt in a lot of situations, just because you have spares of everything, and if you do lose it, you have some backups. It's like I was showing you before, your batteries also have these balance wires right over here. This little white piece gets nicked all the time by the batteries. I actually just had one that broke today, so I have to go and replace that, but these guys are really nice ways to replace them. Nice little plastic pieces. I think I bought this one on Amazon. I'll leave a link here as well. And actually just a bunch of extra things to make sure that you're able to repair things on the fly or when you're back working on your bench at home. And I know this is probably one thing no one's looking forward to, but you're going to have to learn to solder if you want to get into the hobby, because soldering is probably one of the biggest things that makes sure that everything stays in place and everything is connected and working, especially when you're working with electricity and circuitry. Soldering is probably really important. So this is the one that I have, is the D60. I'm not too sure about the rest of the brands, sorry about that. This one's a really nice soldering iron. It plugs into this, is like a kind of like a MacBook cable right over here. Plug this in. I also have a wire that connects to an actual battery itself, so I can have this connected with the wire. So this powers this up, gets nice and hot and solders for me. And then this is the soldering iron that I have. Again, it's from Team Black Sheep, from TBS, so definitely recommend getting this one. This one's really nice. And there's a lot of soldering wire. I mean, if you're going to be in it for a couple years, you might have a couple different ones, but I mean, I've been in it for a while with three months. Haven't used a lot, still have a lot to go, so buying one is definitely a lifesaver. Oh yeah, it's always good to have electrical tape on the side as well, you know, for anything. All right, second to the last thing, you're gonna need a LiPo bag. This is a fireproof bag for all of your batteries. Again, I got mine from Pyro Drone right over here. But these guys, if your batteries do end up catching fire, if they do end up having like a short or something and they go bursting into flames, this guy is gonna protect it. I know it looks a little risky with all my batteries inside, but I'd rather have it in here than burn everything else down and I can no longer get it back. So, flameproof bag for your LiPo batteries is a must. And then coming to the last bit of stuff is going to be props for propellers. So you're gonna need a lot of backups with these guys, because when you crash, these things are gonna bend, and if they bend, they're not gonna perform properly, and you're gonna have to replenish them. Luckily, you can find a lot of these guys even on Amazon or any kind of drone website. They're gonna have them in stock. Now, different propellers are meant for different things. These are the stock ones that come with the Nazgul. I just like these guys a lot, and they were like 15 bucks for a pack of like a lot. So if you're looking to buy some of these guys, Amazon's a really nice way to go, but also supporting the drone pages as well is super nice. I know there's a couple ones that are like this. Some of them are curved. They all do different things, but again, I'll leave them in the video description, or I'll leave a whole selection of people that you can go and follow, and they do a really nice way of explaining what does what. All right, you guys, and that is everything that you are going to need in order to get into the FPV hobby. I hope the video was informational. I hope it helped you along the way. I know there's a lot of things that kind of bugged me about the hobby when I was first starting out, because everyone's doing all like these like higher end products. No one's really going down to like a beginner status. Everyone's like, oh, you need like a T16 radio, and you need all these other really big drones for these things. So, and you got to solder these things together, and just a lot of compatibility stuff. Was just really difficult for me in the beginning. So yeah, I hope this video helped you guys out. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure to like it. Share with a couple of your friends as well. I know that there's a lot of people that are getting super interested into it, and there's no real starter place for it. Thank you so much, you guys, for watching, and I will see you in the next one.